One of the things about our show is it's going to be unique.
You are what you do. You can say any amount of things that you want to say, but what you do is what everybody sees.
People are like, oh, I'm just going to JV it. Like, let's just JV it. Like, what the hell does that mean?
I cannot tell you how excited I am to hang out with you guys today. So thank you so much.
Well, then that end buyer could come back and say, well, I didn't fully understand that it was subject to.
That's not a thing. Like, the SEC has thought of all of these things. They've been here since 1932.
And you can do what you want with your property.
Buyers have time, they have negotiating power, they have options.
Oh my gosh, I am blown away by your inexperience, and they've been in business 20 years.
And that includes things other people put on your property, right? It's your property to be okay. Suddenly Cousin Jimmy's in a lawsuit.
A novation is replacing one contract or one obligation with another.
Out with the old, in with the new.
Yes.
Welcome to the show, everybody. Today we're talking about opportunity zones. I'm Andy Fowler, and I'm here with Sean St. Clair. If you're new to the show, like our channel. You can find us on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube. On YouTube, we are at InRem Podcast. That is at InRem Podcast. We're also available for download for you audio listeners. You can find us on Spotify as well as Apple Podcasts. Go there, leave us a review. Helps us out a ton. Download the podcast. You don't have to watch it on YouTube if you don't want to. You can listen to us while you're doing chores around the house. We really appreciate it. With that, we're going to go to Sean, who has our legal update.
Thank you, Andy. So my legal update today is addressing what a subordination clause is and when it's to be used. So what is a subordination clause? A subordination clause is a clause that goes into loan documents that provides that loan and the lien securing that loan, so the deed of trust or mortgage securing that loan, will be subordinate to some other loan. So, for example, you have a first position loan, and you're going to acquire a property subject to, and the property has some equity, and the seller says, well, I'll carry a second for that equity. So I'll be the lender for the second, I want to recapture that equity, but you don't have to pay it to me as cash at closing. Instead, I will give you terms. I will agree to a second position loan, and they take out a second position loan for that equity. You may want to build into the loan documents a provision that says, okay, seller, you're doing this, but if I, as the buyer, the new owner, and the borrower want to go and pay off your first position loan, the loan I'm taking it subject to, I want to, refinance, or I come into cash, maybe I sell another property or something, and I just want to pay off that first position loan, I can do that. But if I want to go and obtain additional financing in the identical amount of that loan, I can do that as well. And I can offer that new lender first position on the property. As long as the loan amount is equal to the prior loan amount, I can go and take out that loan, and you will agree that your loan will be subordinate to that loan. Normally, the seller is going to have to cooperate and sign a subordination clause, which is why you build in certain provisions into the loan documents that explain what happens if they don't comply, that they're in breach, that there's penalties for not complying. So hopefully the seller / lender then complies, agrees to subordinate to your new financing. But it just gives you some more flexibility and freedom to, refinance, to pay off the existing loan, to take out new financing without the seller, who agreed to originally a second position loan and understood it would be a second position loan, without that seller jumping into first position, but would remain in that second position. I would also encourage you, because loan documents are like a promissory note, deed of trust, mortgage. They're unilateral documents, meaning it's the borrower that delivers those documents to the seller / lender. They're the ones that sign it. The lender doesn't sign those documents. You're going to want something, whether that's the purchase agreement or some other document, that the seller who's going to become the lender is going to sign, that basically says, yeah, I understand that there's going to be a subordination clause. I understand that I'm always going to be in second position, and you're free to go and obtain other financing as long as it doesn't exceed the existing loan, and you can put that against the property, and then my loan will be subordinate to that. So that is a subordination clause, and that's when it would be used.
All right. Thank you, Sean. With that, let's talk about some announcements coming up. Tomorrow, every Wednesday at 5:00 p.m., we have the Creative Finance Collective. And again, when I say 5:00 p.m., that is 5:00 Arizona time. So if you are watching from the East Coast, from the Midwest, maybe from the Southwest, we get some viewers from Texas and Ohio and some in the East Coast. Keep in mind that's 5:00 Arizona time, so it's closer to maybe 7 to 8 o'clock your time. But make sure to join us 5 p.m. Arizona time every Wednesday, the Creative Finance Collective, where we as attorneys and a group and a collection of attorneys take time for an entire hour to answer any and all questions that you have related to creative finance. The more questions we get, the better the discussion is. So there is no stupid question in creative finance, whether it's, wow, this sounds cool, I've never been involved, what should I start thinking about, to the more advanced questions dealing with certain provisions of subject to addendums or purchase contracts or whatever the case may be, or different strategies that there are. We're there to answer those questions. We also are there to discuss with other professionals creative finance, what that's looking like, what regulations are coming down in other states. It really is a broad discussion and a real neat opportunity to learn about creative finance and interact with lawyers that are in the space on creative finance. I know, even though we're not listeners, Sean, and we're attorneys in the space, we get value just by participating in it, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's one of those things where there's honestly a limited number of attorneys that really understand this creative finance, that understand, the different transaction structures that investors are utilizing and want to utilize in their transactions. And so the ability to basically go on and network with these attorneys is huge. And they're attorneys from all over the country who have varying degrees of experience. And I leave the collective with new ideas, with new provisions for the documents that I utilize. And it's a learning experience for me. And the other attorneys that are in the space have said the same thing, that they always are learning something new, and they're keeping notes, and they're going back and they're making changes in their practice with their forms to basically improve. And that's what we're always trying to do as attorneys is, just improve, to learn more, and that's why they call it the practice of law, right? We always are developing and honing our craft, and the Creative Finance Collective does that. So for me, we do have some audience participation. We do have some people that ask questions and people that view and even view after the fact. And that's great. And I want our audience to do that. But for me, the real value is that networking component with those other attorneys.
Yeah, it really is valuable. And like we said, when we say other attorneys, we've got attorneys appearing from California, from Ohio, from Texas, Arizona, Georgia, Alabama. They're really all over the place. Anywhere where creative finance is happening, we're inviting those participants. And it's been a really good group. So no matter where you're at, make sure to be a part of it. We'd love to have you and to engage with you. With that, we're going to go get into our topic today. So we're diving back into real estate investment opportunities as they are afforded by the Internal Revenue Service or through the IRS tax code. And today we're talking about opportunity zones. And to discuss opportunity zones, we have the one and only, the CPA attorney, Todd Lenczycki. Todd, thanks so much for being with us again.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, so I know you've been on our show a couple times, and I'm sure we haven't polled them, but I'm almost certain an audience favorite. But for those who are just coming and learning about Todd for the first time, why don't you tell them a little bit about yourself, how you got into doing what you're doing and becoming the CPA attorney?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Todd Lenczycki. I am the CPA attorney, www.thecpaattorney.com. As the name implies, I'm an attorney and a certified public accountant. I'm registered and licensed in Arizona and in California. I have a split practice. I practice in Phoenix, Arizona area. I also practice in the Southern California area, but able to practice anywhere in California, including up north, San Francisco. So a little bit about myself. I've been an attorney for over 15 years. I've been an accountant, an auditor, a CPA for longer. I like to define myself as when finances and money meets the law, that's where I need to be. And that's where someone like me needs to be. I think there's a statistic out there that there's only a few 100,000 CPA attorneys in the United States. I'm one of them. Hopefully, as you said, I'm one of the more energetic, one of the more charismatic, one that doesn't have my nose in a book all the time, which I think is a good thing. But I'm always trying to learn, like you said, trying to get better. It's just I have that unique perspective of bringing, accounting and finance to the world of litigation and law.
Well, I can tell the listeners that it's a huge advantage to engage with an attorney that also has a tax background. Because I can't tell you how many times, and I'm sure Sean could attest to this, where I'm doing and working on business matters and we're working through structuring or what this deal is going to look like. And inevitably the question comes up, okay, how is this going to be taxed? How does this hurt you or help you from a tax perspective? And I ultimately have to say, I don't know. We need to bring in a CPA tax professional to figure that out. Hopefully they've worked with somebody. If they haven't, we refer them. But just to have the ability to work with an attorney that has that knowledge on both the legal side and the tax side is a huge advantage. I'm sure your clients find that to be a big advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I sell myself as, 2 in 1, 2 for the price of 1.
There you go. So we're talking about opportunity zones today, and we're going to get into that as best we can as an investment opportunity, but a way to understand the opportunity from the tax code perspective. But why don't we just start here? What is an opportunity zone?
Yeah, that was a question that's been circulating now for 6 years. So back in 2017, some tax laws were passed that allowed for what was known as opportunity zones to be used. And in a nutshell and big picture, it's a way to defer capital gains. So not just capital gains made on real estate, but more importantly, capital gains made on stocks and investments of any kind. So the way the law came about is there were some very big tech professionals that had a lot of money from, the .com era, even beyond that, the growth of the internet. These big people that had millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars in gains from starting companies to selling them, said, you know what, there's got to be a way where the government should incentivize us to putting our money back into the community. And they lobbied Congress. They made some things happen where an opportunity zone was created. And what an opportunity zone is meant to be is designated areas in every state where it's considered a depressed area or an area that needs redevelopment, an area that, according under the zip codes or the census codes, doesn't generate the kind of business or money that those type of areas should be generating. So it could be an abandoned factory site. It could be a port that's no longer used. It could just be some depressed property in the inner cities that just needs to be redeveloped, where if we give the right tax incentives to the right people that have money, maybe they'll be enticing them to go back there and develop something great. So that's what it developed as. That's what it started as back in 2017. It's been now around for 6 years. I think a lot of the fire and the flavor was in those first couple of years where, what does this mean? What is it going to be? And that's kind of died down now, but does it still exist? Yes. Does it still give you some advantages? Yes. So let's talk about them. Let's see what those are. And let's see, how we can develop them and help our viewers out there.
Well, first, assuming somebody, and we'll get into the details to find out whether this is something a given real estate investor might like to do, but how do you find opportunity zones? Where are they? Are they specifically designated places somewhere? Do you get them designated? Where, if I wanted to go find one, how would I do it?
Sure. So luckily, they've all been designated already. Every state had to designate a certain amount of properties or a certain amount of zip codes as opportunity zones. They were passed by Congress. They went through a vetting process. So opportunity zones are already set. Opportunity land, you can find out, you go a simple, I think the IRS has a website that says, type in the zip code and it will show you a map and it will show you an overlay of where the opportunity zones are. And as we get into the details, that is very key because literally your business has to be in that opportunity zone. So I know Arizona, for instance, was on the forefront of building opportunity zones, and they were one of the first states to designate their areas. So for instance, you could be on 16th Street in Washington and you're in an opportunity zone, and you could be on 17th Street in Van Buren and you're not. And the difference between, a cross section and a block is all based upon what was designated and what was not. But you can assume for the most part that if you're in an area of your city that's depressed or something like that, there's a probable chance that's an opportunity zone, but you do need to check it to ensure that you are within those street boundaries.
Are opportunity, can they be fluid in that? Can a state update an opportunity zone or take them off?
No, they're set in stone. They've been designated. They're locked in. And as you'll hear, there's a lot of criticisms of opportunity zones. And one of the criticisms is states could designate it what they wanted. And, the lines they drew, maybe an area that shouldn't have been developed is now part of it. So you'll be able to find some opportunity zones that are in a nicer area, or, half of it's bad and half of it's good, or half of it's profitable and half of it's not. So they are set in stone. You do have to look at the map, but, there's easy resources. It's a quick Google away.
So it takes an act of Congress to change at this point an opportunity zone.
Correct.
So really, I mean, now it's probably going to take some time, but there's, at this point, absent a further act of Congress, there's a finite number of opportunity zones. And once those are built out and developed, at that point, you're out. There's no more of these, right? Is that how?
Correct. Yeah. And do know, though, these are large swaths of land. So if you're still one of the people out there saying, I want to own a piece of an opportunity zone, you're going to be able to find it in the city that you live in. So it's not like they're running out, but yeah, you're right. They're designated areas that can no longer change, but there's still opportunity in the opportunity zones.
Now, does every zip code have an opportunity zone?
No. Every state does. Every state has a certain amount designated. I believe they had to designate up to 25% or 20% of certain land areas as opportunity zones. So they're a lot bigger than you realize. And like you said, you can find them anywhere. You'll be able to find one where you probably want to work or do or operate. And that's what needs to be done, in order to start taking advantage of these things. And I think that's a good overlay into what are the advantages of an opportunity zone. Why do we hear so much about it? Why are they still prevalent today? The main thing was like every tax code or everything within taxes, you don't want to be paying taxes. So the target audience was people with gains, people that bought Microsoft in 1980 and sold it in 2010. They have this huge gain. What am I going to do with it? I don't want to pay taxes on it. What do I do? I bought, this could even be residence, or it could be, other properties or something like that. I have these capital gains. I want to get rid of them, and they have to be a capital gain. Any other gain doesn't count. Any other kind of ordinary income doesn't count. It has to be capital gains in order to get this. So what does it give you? It gives you a deferral of your capital gain until 2026. That's basically you ask for a cutoff date. That's your cutoff date there. So if you were to do it today, you have a deferral of your capital gain until 2026, paying taxes in April of 2027. If you did it back in 2017, you had a tax deferral of 7 years. Now, of 9 years. Now your deferral is down to 3 years.
And that date right now, absent a further act of Congress, is set in stone. And I guess the feds presumably are going to come into a lot of money in 2027 because everyone's going to be paying the capital
Exactly.
gains.
Everybody's capital gains that you invested into an opportunity zone come due. Now, had you been an early adopter, there was ways to get a stepped up in basis, so your full capital gain wasn't due, but those expiration dates have passed. But you still get the capital deferral. But the key thing, and we haven't touched on this yet, the capital gains that you do invest into an opportunity zone, the first benefit is you get a deferral till 2026. The second benefit, and the much greater benefit, is everything that you earn on that capital gain. So your capital gains on top of your capital gains, those are tax-free for life. So that is the advantage of an opportunity zone. It's always been the biggest advantage, but now it's the only advantage that's really left out there. So let's put this into monetary form.
Mm-hmm.
I just sold Microsoft stock. I've been holding it forever. I have a $550,000 capital gain. If I don't do anything with that, I am going to pay taxes on it. It's a long-term game. I'm going to have to pay 20%. So my $550,000, I am going to give the government $110,000 of that. A lot of people are like, I don't want to give the government $110,000. So let me find an opportunity zone. We'll get into the details of how we do that, how we find it. But I invested properly in an opportunity zone. My $110,000 debt doesn't come due until April of 2027. But my $550,000, if I just invested it in a new office build in an opportunity zone, and that office build goes from $550,000 to $2.5 million, and whenever I sell that office building 15 years from now, that $2 million additional gain, tax-free, no money. That's a $400,000 savings on my example right there. So that is what everyone loves about opportunity zones at the beginning. That's what everyone loves about them now. And that's the advantage of doing it today.
So 110. So back to your hypothetical, $110,000 is not chump change, right? I mean, and a lot of times people are asset rich, but cash poor. And so, they sell the Microsoft stock and it's like, well, I don't want to pay the tax today. But if I pay the tax today, I have $550,000 that's sitting in my bank account. So,
well, 440.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I have to pay that. But I throw that $550,000 into an opportunity zone. I own real estate, which is great. But then 2027, Uncle Sam knocks on my door and says, hey, where's that 110 grand?
Problem.
I
get it. Yeah, problem.
The problem here. Like, I don't have that money sitting in my bank account anymore.
Correct. You can divest yourself of some of your building that you just bought. Maybe if it was a rental property that got up to speed, or something that's already out there that was making money, maybe you have some cash flow from that to pay it off. But yes, you're exactly right. That was always, and that's going to be the reckoning day for a lot of these opportunity funds out there. When those taxes come due, what are we going to do? Because we're going to have a lot of investors that are going to say, I need that money to pay this tax burden now, and they'll have to find it. So let's get into a little bit more detail about what an opportunity zone and how you invest into them. So anyone can invest a capital gain into an opportunity zone, and what you do it through is what's known as an opportunity fund, or an OF they call it. So your OF is established. You can establish your own opportunity fund, but that is where you put your capital gain in. And it's usually an LLC, some kind of other business entity. That fund holds your money and then disperses it into the opportunity zone opportunities that you want to purchase. So for instance, the fund itself is the one that's going out and buying the raw land and building an apartment complex. It's the fund that's buying the apartment complex and adding a second wing onto it. So doing all that. So you're exactly right. In April of 2027, there's going to be a lot of people knocking on their opportunity fund's door saying, I need some money. And the answer is, well, you can take it out of the investment, but just know you're losing that forever capital gain on that. You're going to pay whatever capital gains you have to do on that. You'll get your money out, but you're losing that forever. And hopefully the deferral time gave you enough time to plan a little bit for that.
So, a few weeks back, we talked about 1031 exchanges, and there were some pretty strict timeframes for perfecting, for lack of a better term, a 1031 exchange. So I'm getting ready to sell my Microsoft stock. I know that, I'm going to be making a bundle here. There's going to be some capital gains. What timeframes do I have to put that money into an opportunity fund and to then invest that into an opportunity zone? What's that process look like? What exactly happens to make that work?
So the good news is you have a lot more than a 1031 exchange. So when you sell your stock, you have 180 days to get it into an opportunity fund. That's the cutoff. You're given a little extra extension for tax time, those kind of things. So usually everybody's scrambling around by the April 15th deadline trying to put their money into an opportunity fund. Once the opportunity fund gets it, they have a time frame then to deploy it into the opportunity zone. Usually that's another 180 days. Sometimes you can extend that out longer. They're really trying to make it beneficial for this to happen. So the rules have changed a little bit. They've given guidance on when does the opportunity fund need to disperse the money? Does it all have to go into it? It doesn't. They could take at least 10% out, throw it somewhere else, but it's really at the fund level that where the time restraints really start to hit people. And you really have to have a good opportunity fund manager, whether it's you doing it or someone else that knows how to deploy that capital properly, have something lined up. But like everything in the tax world, there are feeders and suppliers out there that will just say, you know what, you have excess opportunity fund money, put it into our project. We'll gladly take it. We've been designated and we are allowed to. So it all comes back to the fund level, the time limits that they have to set, and the fund itself every 6 months must designate and continue its opportunity fund criteria. And what does that mean? It's just a simple asset test of how much money is in your fund, how much is it deployed in the opportunity zone, did you hit the threshold? If you did it, great, you're good to go. If you failed, I think you're given another 6 months to correct that failure. If you still fail, you still maintain yourself as an opportunity fund, but you got to start paying penalties for not having your capital deployed properly. And obviously those penalties flow back to the investors in the fund. They're not too happy. So you want to make sure you're meeting your criteria for your investments at the fund level.
So are there, this seems all very complicated.
Very complicated, more so than most tax strategies.
Yeah. So, and you said, well, you could have your own opportunity fund. Like, well, okay, are there companies, are there attorneys? Who sets these funds up and gets them properly designated as an opportunity fund?
Surprisingly, they're very easy to set up. It's the criteria to putting them and keeping the eligibility that is the hard part that you need the attorney in. But how do you set up a fund? It's as simple as setting up an entity, an LLC, a corporation, whatever you want to call it, whatever you want to form. And it's you send in a form to the IRS. These forms are surprisingly simple. And it's just basically saying, I'm an opportunity fund. I am now under the credentials of, I have to self-prove myself every 6 months. I will send in those forms every 6 months to self-prove myself, and you're off and running, and you are an opportunity fund good to go. Now, could you hire a professional? Are you recommended in hiring a professional to do it? Yes. They're going to be able to streamline it. They're going to get your qualifications. The main part is qualifying in the future. That's all going to be taken care of. If you don't want to do it, there's many opportunity funds out there that are already established, just like any kind of investment portfolio. Hey, I want to be involved in apartments in the opportunity zone. There's an opportunity fund for you that will take your money. I want to be involved in commercial buildings. There's an opportunity fund that will take your money. So it's not like you have to reinvent your own opportunity fund, but that's where I see a lot of my clients are. I want to take my own money. I want to manage it myself. I already know of what I want to buy in the opportunity zone. set me up to do it. And it's almost like a private transaction. They're not out there looking for other investors. If they are, it's friends and family that also want to do this. And bang, we create it. They follow it. They get the benefits. And it's just kind of their tight circle and they take advantage.
So there's no requirement that these funds be run or managed by some independent trustee or third party. You can literally set up your own for your own private investment.
Exactly. You could set up your own. So yeah, there's a lot of quote unquote related party transactions going on there where someone sets up their own fund, they buy their own properties, they manage them themselves, and they basically just take the tax advantages. In fact, that's the cleanest way of doing it. It's when you start trying to get others involved, you try to get financing, you try to get other things. But, as long as you're not straying too far away from the simple buy and develop strategy, it's pretty good for you. Or buy and redevelop. There's all these limits and, on what could be, where you really start getting into the nitty gritty is what can the fund do? How does the fund properly deploy its money into the opportunity zone? Because they don't want a lot of people taking advantage of it, just buying the house that they already owned and making it into an Airbnb. That's disallowed. Buying an established business that's already there. That's kind of disallowed. What they want you to do is take your opportunity fund money and start something new in that depressed area so that depressed area gets better. Now, are there ways around it? Are there percentages to kind of figure out how it works? Yes, there is. But if you follow the main guidelines, I want to develop something new, whether it's a business or a building in a depressed area, and you want to do that, you need to look into an opportunity zone because it's going to give you tax benefits for doing that simple process.
Now, does somebody need to actually live or work within the opportunity zone in order to invest in it?
No. Where the fund resides, where the investors reside is they can reside anywhere they want as long as they have capital gains to put into it. What matters most is that the opportunity fund is actually investing in those areas. So I'm buying an apartment complex. The apartment complex better be in the opportunity zone. I'm buying something to develop. The development better be in the opportunity zone. In fact, it has to be in the opportunity zone. And what we talk about here is the fork that everyone has to deal with. Do I want to buy property, which is the simple thing to do in opportunity zones because it's cited there, it will obviously qualify? Or do I want to start up a business in the opportunity zone? So that can be done as well. So for instance, I want to set up Todd Lenczycki's landscaping business. If I set up that landscaping business in the opportunity zone, I'm pretty much there as long as I go to work in the opportunity zone. My assets are stored in the opportunity zone. I may have landscaping clients all around in Paradise Valley and Scottsdale, all the nice areas that need landscaping. But if all of them come back at night and we park in the opportunity zone and I go home, back to my home in Chandler, we're fine because the business itself is centered in the opportunity zone.
So if your storefront, if you're let's say a contractor, tradesperson, that seems to be, something pretty basic. Or if your storefront is in the opportunity zone, you can basically service any other area. And as long as, all your assets are pretty much kept and maintained there. So a law firm in theory could open up in an opportunity zone, but their clients can be from, anywhere in Arizona and it doesn't matter.
Correct. Now, remember the goal here though, is to create a business that you're going to be able to sell for more money so you can avoid capital gains on it. So, a law firm, I don't know what kind of value that has, as opposed to, a call center or something like that. But there are safe harbors where if you're able to show that 70% of my employees work in the opportunity zone, 70% of my assets are in the opportunity zone. I just bought a whole bunch of servers and computers and we set them all up and, we're in the storefront and we're within that opportunity zone boundary. Yeah, I have an opportunity zone business now. And my opportunity zone business can get funding from opportunity funds. And those opportunity funds are making someone somewhere some capital gains, that will be tax-free someday.
Now, what if you sell your, 5 years down the line, you've paid your capital gains, into 2027. You've grown this business and you're about to sell it for, significant profit. And you're going to sell it to somebody who has no plans of keeping it in the opportunity
That's
zone.
fine.
That
You're
is fine.
Yeah, just know though
Okay.
that the hold period to get the capital gain, no capital gains on the entire investment, is 10 years.
Oh, okay.
Let me show it there. 10 years. So there is a long hold period on it. So if we started this whole thing together today in 2023, we'd have to sell that business in 2033 to get the full capital. I just sold my business for $4 million. I bought it, developed it. It cost me $1 million. I have a capital gain of $3 million. Bang, that 10-year property. But yeah, does the future person have to do it? No. It all filters back to the qualified opportunity fund. So the opportunity fund at that time, if it's been 10 years, can make disbursements tax-free. If it hasn't been 10 years, the opportunity fund can just go out and redistribute, all of those sales proceeds into another opportunity in the opportunity zone and keep that 10 years going. So, I sold my landscaping business and I'm now buying a hotel that I'm going to redevelop. Bang. In 10 years between the whole time period, you're going to get that all capital gains free.
Now let's talk about investing in portions of a company that operates in the opportunity zone. So in your hypothetical, you said, okay, well, I'm going to sell Microsoft stock. Well, the whole idea is I bought ownership in a company, but I didn't work in the company. I didn't operate the company. I didn't build the company. I just thought it would be a good company. So I bought some stock and it appreciated. Yep. Great. I don't want to pay capital gains on it right now. And I want to put it into an investment that I can hold for, in your case, 10 years for an opportunity zone. I'm going to hold it for 10 years, but then I'll pay my capital gains on the 550 in 2027, but I don't want to pay any more capital gains on any further investments from this money. Is there an ability to buy partial ownerships within a business in an opportunity zone so that, I just sit back, let my ownership interest appreciate? I'm, that type of thing. And someone else builds the business, does the work, and then I just sell my shares. Are there like publicly traded companies that, work in the opportunity zone where you can just buy their stock and let it go up in value?
I don't think it's at that level yet. But the transaction though is done a different way. The way it's done is I'm giving you, a $500,000. I'm going to give the money to the opportunity zone business. The opportunity zone business is going to go out and buy a $500,000 asset with it or something like that. And then you're exactly right. I get the appreciation of my equity interest or whatever, but you got to make sure that's an opportunity zone business at first. And, it's kind of, it's in a little way, there's not a lot of regulation there. There's rules in place, but not a lot of regulation. So, as long as you put your money successfully into the opportunity fund and the opportunity fund is successfully deploying it into opportunity zone businesses, whether it's an equity interest, buying assets, doing whatever, they're effectively deploying it. That's all that needs to be done. So the opportunity fund then will come back every 6 months and say, yeah, we have an equity interest in opportunity zone business A. That's, our assets. Boom, boom, boom. You're making it happen. And that's what they want. But what qualifies as an opportunity zone business is where you're going to get tripped up there. It can't be investing in a business that's already been established. It's got to be a business that was built from the ground up using the opportunity zone funds or using whatever other investments, but using that up. So it's not like I can go back just because Oracle's headquarters happens to be in an opportunity zone. I can't just go, oh my gosh, Oracle now is an opportunity fund business. No, it's got to be established and built up from that.
Now, what if a business, though, it's not a publicly traded, but it's going to syndicate, right? It's going to go out and raise private capital and operate in an investment zone. Can I be one? Yeah, like a franchise. Can I be one of the investors in that business and deploy my funds that way?
If it's kept separated and I'm investing in the franchise that's in the opportunity zone and my money's being used to build the drive-through, that's great. You're in.
Interesting.
So I
So-
I
go
could
ahead.
start a restaurant, but I couldn't buy a restaurant.
You can buy a restaurant, but you have to significantly improve it underneath what that law means. And what significantly improved means you got to take twice of what you put into it. So if you bought a restaurant for $100,000 and you gutted it and you made it a $200,000 restaurant because you used your capital gain money, you used your opportunity fund money, that's considered an improved business. And yes, now your restaurant is considered an opportunity zone business operating correctly. So buying something that already exists is fine, but you got to redevelop it to the tune of twice, 2 times. So if you bought a hotel, you got to renovate it over time, and you're given time to do those renovations. It's not like they have to happen in the first 6-month period. As long as you can show that the money will be used over time to create this much better thing in the opportunity zone, you're going to qualify.
Now, you mentioned earlier that it only will apply to capital gains. Does it matter whether the capital gain is short-term or long-term?
No.
Okay.
The reason why I say it only applies to capital gains is because the other money can come into your opportunity business or whatever you want. You're going to get debt financing. You're going to have people just putting money into it. The only people that really care about the opportunity zone, though, are the people that have the capital gains that they're trying to defer, the people that want to earn capital gains tax-free into the future. So for instance, me and you, Sean, go into business together and we started an opportunity zone business, and you're the one that has the capital gains. You invest through it through your opportunity fund. You're going to get all those deferrals. My $100,000 that I throw into the business, when the business is sold, I'm going to have to pay capital gains on it. If the business operated for 10 years, your capital gains, because you put them in there, will be tax-free. So it's not like these businesses have to be started or the investment has to be created all with opportunity zone funds. You can get money from elsewhere, but just those people that are using opportunity zone funds need to make sure that those criteria are met so that you can maintain it.
So what if you fail to hold for the 10 years? So you don't get the full advantage of what the law was designed to provide. Is there a penalty? How does that work if you're a forced seller, basically?
If you're a forced seller, that's what's happening in 2026, like we just discussed. There's going to be people pulling money out of their qualified opportunity fund to pay their taxes. So basically, they're going to get their money based upon how it was structured. Maybe there'll be a gain on it. Maybe there'll be a loss on it. I don't know. It depends on how their business or however their quality or opportunity funds were used. But if there is a gain, you will have to pay capital gains on it. So that's why the thought is keep it in your qualified opportunity fund as long as possible. At least keep it in there for the 10 years so that you can pull it out tax-free. But are you able to? That's a different story. There are methods out there where you get debt financing into the business, and that creates the cash flow in order to create and pay off those people in 2027 so that there's money there and that there's dilution, so to speak. But, those strategies can be done, and that's what people are looking at, or that's what people have planned out.
Now, you mentioned that in order to create an opportunity fund, you would go and form an entity. If you want it to be your own opportunity fund, you'd form an entity. Does it matter whether the entity is a corporation, a limited liability company, a partnership? What type of entity are you looking to form?
It can be any entity, but it has to be an actual entity. So that means that it can't be a one-person LLC. It can't be a sole disregarded LLC. But as long as you and your spouse get into it, you and a friend, the ownership could be 99-1. It doesn't have to be 50-50, but it can be any entity under the sun that's allowed. It could be, as long as you're formed and then you file your confirmation with the IRS saying, I want to be treated as an opportunity fund, you're good to go.
And then go ahead, Andy.
I was just going to say, so is that your tax election, or are you still electing a particular?
No, you're still electing as an LLC. You're still being treated like that. But ideally, you're not making a lot of money at the opportunity fund level. It's all flowing through. It's just you're getting money in and you're dispersing money out. You're not an income making proposition at the fund level.
So that entity would choose like what, partnership taxation or something
Sure.
like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Like I said, now there is a second prong. There's always ways of doing it. There's always other ways to slice things up. There are opportunity funds out there that are being the businesses themselves. So there are, revenues flowing through. We just, we're a restaurant and we're operating, at the opportunity fund level, but just know you're not getting any tax benefits from it. It's just, if you're making revenues, expenses, net it out, you're paying taxes on those ordinary income amounts.
So let's say hypothetically, I figure it out and I do an opportunity fund and I have my money sitting there, and then I'm like, okay, now I'm going to start a business in the opportunity zone. And so I go and I find a fledgling restaurant. And I'm like, oh, I could overhaul this thing and really turn it into something here. Is there anything that I need to do with the IRS or otherwise to confirm that, hey, I'm going to be good to go in deploying my money in this restaurant and doing an overhaul with it? Is there any, pre-advanced IRS approval, anything that you have to do? Or is it simply you go do it and you file your taxes, and, in 10 years, when you go to sell it, you just tell them it was opportunity zone and you're good to go? Is that pretty much as simple as that?
It's more the latter, surprisingly. It's more of, get everything established up front, create your opportunity fund. A lot of the tax work is at the opportunity fund level of recertifying every 6 months. It's only if you start running into those deadlines. For instance, I got my new restaurant. It's going to take me a little bit longer than 6 months to renovate it at 2 times better. You can submit proposals. There's safe harbors under the rules that say, look, I have this extra cash here. It's going to be used to develop it. And, the next, I think you're given up to 365 days, I believe, as long as you submit a working capital plan and say, look, this is how the 2 times development will be done. Don't hold me to all these dates. They're all out there, but that is the way to do it. So you're exactly right. If you can get it bang, bang, bang done, it's as simple as you just said. If you need a little bit of time, there's a mishap here or there, they're going to give you some extensions along the way before they start penalizing you. And just know that there's ways around it. They're trying to make, with the latest regulations that were done, they're trying to make this as easy and friendly as possible for the people that are trying to do it straightforward. This is how we want it done. If you're starting to get a little bit more elaborate, they're going to look at you a little bit harder. They're going to make you jump through a few more hoops. There's a few more regulations you have to follow. But if you're as simple as you just said, I want to buy a restaurant, I'm going to make it better. This is how I'm going to do it. This is the time frame it's going to take me. You're golden. You're good to go. You're there.
Can I elect or decide how much of a capital gain that I'm facing to pay? Can I elect how much of that I want to use? Meaning, I sell my business and I've got $1 million, let's say, exposed that I'm going to have to pay a tax on, but I only want to invest 500,000, maybe half of that.
Yeah.
I can just take that half, and that half will get the deferral treatment, and the other half won't, and I'd be okay.
Yeah, it's whatever you deploy into the qualified opportunity fund. That starts receiving the benefit. You'll get the deferral right away. On your Schedule D, you write deferral, and there's a statement that you fill out saying this has been put into a qualified opportunity fund, and then the qualified opportunity fund meets its criteria and hits it. But yeah, you're exactly right. I have a capital gain. I just sold my property. Oh my gosh, let me put $500,000 of it into a qualified opportunity fund. Let me take $100,000 that I'll pay taxes on to pay for my grandchild's college. And let me take the other $400,000 and put it into a 1031 exchange. Hey, you got it all covered.
That would also allow you potentially to set aside money when the deferral time runs out, right? So you can deploy all the capital in the fund, but have backup in the event that you don't want to be a forced seller in 2026.
Correct.
Yeah.
So let's say hypothetically that I have my primary residence somewhere that I've lived to the last 5 years. It's gone up dramatically in value, and I'm a single individual, so I only get $250,000 in capital gains, and I'm going to realize, 500,000 I'm able to zero out the 250 of that, but I'm going to have to pay capital gains on 250,000. Can I use that 250,000, even though it was from my primary residence, into an opportunity zone?
Yes, it's as long as it's a capital gain, it can be treated into an opportunity zone to defer the capital gain.
All right. So it doesn't have to be from stocks, business income, or
It's
even
whatever
investment
capital
property.
gains that you have that you're filling out on your,
Interesting.
but just know there's a lot more that goes into when you're selling a business. There's other things that get classified as different types of gains other than capital gains, but capital gains are what this is set up to do. Now, the common factor is, people have them from stock appreciation, those type of things. That's what you mainly see, but you're on the course.
And I can invest in this nationwide, right? I mean, if I am a resident of Arizona and I sell my property in Arizona, I don't have to keep the money in Arizona. I could go to, Massachusetts and deploy my funds there.
Yeah. And when this thing first started, back in 2017, 2018, 2019, a lot of the conventions that you went to, the Opportunity Zone convention, a lot of it was small companies, small family outfits that had extra money that wanted to do something good with it. And that's what they were there doing. I mean, you could see the people that are, look, I have $1 million and I want to put it somewhere good because I want to feel good about myself that this money is going somewhere. And that's what you're seeing. So yeah, there was no boundaries set on it. And it's, giving them the best proposal to get their money into your project. That's how it was then. I still think it's somewhat now. A lot of the deferral timelines are coming up. The stepped up bases are gone. But that was the goal of this program, was to do good things with people's money. And that's what you'll see out there if you really dig into it, of the people that are using it.
Has this worked? I mean, obviously the purpose of it is, hey, we're going to go in and there's these areas that really just need businesses to come in and invest and, improve just the community in general and make, provide services and things like that. I mean, are there any success stories that you're aware of where it's like, oh yeah, that whole town or city or area has been like, changed because of this law?
The jury's still out. I haven't seen much of it, but as you talked about a little bit earlier, because the regulation of it is so minimal, I think there's a lot going on that people don't realize, meaning that it's being done on these individual bases. What you do see are the giant projects. There was a designation, I think, somewhere near the water in San Diego, where all of a sudden all these big projects developed there because it happened to be in an opportunity zone and people were just using it as a stepping stool to develop something that they were going to develop anyway. So, you hear the horror stories, if you call that a horror story, of people taking advantage of it. But there are opportunity zones that are significantly developed when, ironically, across the street where the boundary stops, it isn't. So, it's obviously doing something. But as for the real starting up, like you said, a restaurant where you're bringing in employees, is that happening? Yes. Is it happening on the basis, on the scale of everyone expected or wanted? Probably not. But is it happening? Yes. Do we know about it? No, because of the regulation and what you have to file. It's kind of under the radar. I think the number of qualified opportunity funds were huge at the beginning, but they're still being created today. So if they're being created today, they're being created for some type of reason. And, it's probably more of those things that we just discussed now, the smaller things that are no one really, it's not this 30-foot sky, the 30-story skyscraper everyone sees.
Now, are you aware of any opportunity zones that encompass, say, single family residences, or is most of the property going to be zoned, commercial or some other zoning outside of?
No, it's every zoning. There's residences in there. Like I said, in Arizona, it was done on zip codes.
Yeah.
And pretty much all of downtown is, every zip code that was downtown is an opportunity zone to some extent. And as you know, as you start getting towards, east and west of the center, it's all houses out there. And, so redevelopment in those areas will help. And the one thing before we end this, I just want to say one thing. Remember, opportunity zones are set up for new investment and new businesses being started. Because what the question I always get is, oh my gosh, I just found out about opportunity zones. And even better, my business is already in one. So, what kind of tax benefits do I get? And the answer to them is sadly none, because you were already there. And oh my gosh, my property that I've owned forever in downtown Dallas is now an opportunity zone. How do I make money? And the question is, well, you're not going to make the benefits from it, but someone else who buys it will. So, your property value went up a little bit, but, how do you want to monetize that is up to you. You're kind of out of luck. You were in the right place at the right time, but just too early.
Well, could you do a quid pro quo? Meaning, I own in opportunity zone and I bought before, I had the opportunity to take advantage of it. And then this person bought in the opportunity zone over here, same situation. Could we just basically say, okay, you buy my property, I buy your property, or we swap properties, basically do some type of double closing. And now I'm invested in the opportunity zone. Can you do something like that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
You can
wow.
do something like that. I mean, you don't even need to find someone that wants to go along with it. Just sell your property and buy another one somewhere else that's in an opportunity zone. But what you do see is, I was talking to you about percentages earlier. So just remember, 90% of the qualified opportunity fund money needs to go into an opportunity zone. When it's in the opportunity zone, only 70% of that money needs to be used in the opportunity zone, for that business or for that land. So if you start doing the math there, 90% of 70, you start getting into the 60% zone, where if you hit these 60% levels, you're able to get outside of it. So what you start to see, and if you can do it right, is if you own the land in the opportunity zone before it was designated, now it is designated, you can bring your land into these business deals where, hey, I'm providing the land. Let's do something great with it, and I'll own that business now. I no longer own the land. The business is buying the land. And because I fit within those 60% qualifiers, my 40%, because I already owned it, I'm in trouble. But hey, the way the numbers work out, I'm good to go. So let's make that land a certain value. Let's sell it into the business. The business now is 100%. It's good to go. And me as the one little outside investor, I kind of snaked my way through the pinhole and made it in there. So that's what you see more often than someone just, basically dropping and rebuying type of thing.
So if I take my funds, my capital gains, and I go and I invest, I could go now, obviously it couldn't be my primary residence, but I could go buy a single family residence in an opportunity zone, put a tenant in there, and let it appreciate. And like in 10 years, I can sell it and no capital gains. Or
you got that 2 times improvement though. If you get 2
so
times improvement,
I'll
the
have to
property
remodel
will be
it.
good to go. But
okay, so if I buy it for $100,000, I have to put $100,000 into it, and then I'm good to go.
Correct. So you're adding a second story to it. What you'll see a lot though is you go out and you buy a piece of raw land.
Mm-hmm.
A piece of raw land has no value,
Right.
other than the value of the land, and they only look at the improvements on the land. So if you improve the land by just putting a building on it, you're good to go. Or you buy a piece that's dilapidated and you destroy the house that's on there and rebuild something better. You're outside of that 2-time range. And then they did add a new regulation where they said, if something is on there already and it's basically not been used properly. So the example the regulations give you is there was a fast food restaurant and the fast food restaurant closed, and it hasn't been a fast food restaurant for 15 years. It's just sitting there, and you go buy it and you kind of change it up, and you don't really get to the 2 times number, but you make it into a new Circle K or a new fast food restaurant. They kind of consider the dilapidated, unused property as being raw land. So there are some nuances around the 2X improvement, but like I said, the regulations, as long as you have the right mind and you're doing it in the right place and you're not getting overly fancy, they're going to let things get through the regulations to allow that to happen, because they don't want the dilapidated fast food restaurant. They want the new one. So they'll make it happen.
Well, Todd, thanks so much for being with us. Great information. Tell our listeners how they can find you and connect with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So www.thecpaattorney.com. My email address is on there. It's contact@thecpaattorney. I always love phone calls, 209-789-5610. That's the best number to reach me. And again, gentlemen, I appreciate you having me on here. It's always a learning experience. It's always great, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, Todd Lenczycki, the CPA attorney. Thanks so much. We'll do it again. With that, everybody, make sure to join us next week. Have a good one.
Have a good day, everyone.